Everyone checking in on the MJ space, and we have continued action for the bulls today. A little bit of upside. We had a gap up open on CGC, thanks to Martha Stewart. So we're checking in on this tightening equilibrium. We're going to look at the major five, the big tier three, VFF, Fire, Tgod, Medmen, Cura, cweb, Nrth. So the daily equilibrium continues to tighten on CGC. We have our high, low, lower high, higher low, and we're watching for a lower high as we approach 49.86. So we do have a key test of resistance approaching, and if we lose this hourly uptrend, we are going to look at the daily lower high being set. So on this move, we had the hourly support level from yesterday, top of the bounce attempt, higher low in extended hours, bull break this morning, and another higher low on the hourly trying to form at the end of the day. Bulls are going to have to hold 47.07 for that to be the higher low. But I am cautious at this point. And the reason I am cautious is it's all about risk to reward. So I know that there's a pretty good chance that we're going to see a lower high compared to 49.86 and pull back and continue tightening into this daily time frame. So knowing that the odds of a lower high compared to 49.86 are more likely than not, if I'm making bullish entries up here in the $47, $48 range, I am playing with fire a little bit because there is potential that I could be buying right up at that lower high, and then we look to pull back and form a higher low on the daily. So if we were going to see a bull break through that level, in my opinion, we're going to have to see volume comparable to today, and the volume today obviously was on the back of news. So if there is further news to keep the buying pressure up, it is possible to break that resistance, but this is not my kind of resistance break that I want to buy, because at this point we would be going from 42.91 all the way up past $50, and that would be about a 17-18% move. So I would like to see a lower high compared to 49.86, a higher low, and then we'll play that break next week when we get a really tight range. Cron on the daily time frame, an upper wick of profit taking today. So same thing with the high, low of the pullback, lower high, higher low. Anything under 22.96 is a lower high. We topped out today at 22.23. We look at the hourly time frame and can see we still have the uptrend at this point. Very clear higher lows. If we turn on extended hours, it is a clear higher low pattern. So if we lose the hourly higher lows, and we actually did lose a little support level here at the end of the day, down at 21.72, that's potentially the shift in momentum right there, where we had a bull attempt and then we dropped down with further selling pressure into the end of the day. So if we see a day tomorrow where we pull back and drop down into the low $21 range, then it's going to increase the odds that we stay in this tightening daily equilibrium into next week. So these are the most important patterns for me to be watching, and I'm not going to be playing either of these names until they break these daily patterns because I want clarity in my trades. APHA almost broke resistance today, and I got in APHA for this bull break attempt, and I ended up taking a small loss because I didn't see what I wanted to see. So we had a key resistance test of 1059. That's the most important level on the daily time frame in the short term, and we topped out at 1056. So we saw a big volume spike during trading today right here, and that's when I jumped into this trade in the mid 1040s. And couldn't break resistance, 1056, no big deal. Healthy consolidation, we'll give it another attempt. Double top at 1056, which is essentially a triple top at 1059. And then we saw this bear break and pullback, ended up exiting for perhaps a 5 or 6 penny loss, which is very easy to make up. So taking that 6 penny loss means nothing to me because I know I can very easily make 6 cents on APHA at some other point when I see a better setup that I like. So that's just me being protective. Yes, the bulls could just see an hourly higher low and give it another attempt tomorrow. This is pretty healthy hourly consolidation overall, but it's just the criteria of what I wanted to see, and my reasoning for entering the trade was not hit. So that was my reason for exiting the trade. And key support on APHA on the daily time frame, anything above 961 keeps the higher low pattern intact. If we lose 961, we zoom out to the weekly chart and we're just going to look for the weekly range to tighten with a weekly lower high being set, and then we'll pull back for a weekly higher low. So we're going to be watching this daily uptrend level very closely and probably going to break this tightening range when we see the other names break their tightening ranges. ACB, so we had a bit of weakness today on ACB, held the low of yesterday. So 745 and 747 are two key support levels. Today was a daily inside bar, so a very tight range is forming here. And we can see the most important ranges in the short term are going to be these levels. So 759 and 765, two first resistances to be watching. And we've got a few supports down here, 750, 747, 745. If we break the 745 level, we zoom out to the daily and we look for a higher low to be established anywhere above 689. Not as tight a range as the three names that we just looked at, so I don't think we're going to see any kind of clear break on par with what we're going to be anticipating with the rest of the other names, but obviously the direction the other names break is going to have an impact on what the ACB chart ends up looking like. TLRY had a nice bull break of the double top, but we didn't get follow through just yet. So we're still watching the weekly equilibrium, and for the weekly equilibrium to break bullish, we have to see a bull break of 89.88. So that's still a ways off. We can break this daily resistance of 83.10 and still not break the weekly equilibrium. So keep that in mind. And we'll see if the bulls are able to break that level. This is now the tightening daily range to watch. Higher low clearly established at 76.60. And you can see we have these little higher lows, but we have to see the clear bull break. Step number one is 83.10, and then 89.88 after it would be ideal. If we see bull breaks in these individual names that we just looked at before we get TLRY breaking its weekly time frame, which usually takes a little bit longer to break because obviously it's a longer term time frame, that could be a potential early clue that the odds of TLRY breaking $90 would be significant. So we're going to be watching for that for some clues as well, depending who breaks first. And whoever breaks to their tight range first is going to give a little bit of a heads up and shift the odds. If Cron breaks bullish, the odds that CGC are going to break bullish are going to increase, even if it hasn't happened yet, and vice versa if we break bearish. OGI, big upper wick of profit taking for the second day in a row. Bulls just can't get any momentum. They want to see momentum with strong closes at the end of the day, and now 3 days in a row, we've seen the inability to do so. So we do have a daily inside bar with a tightening range. If we look at the hourly chart, it's 887, the low of 825, lower high of 873, and the bulls are attempting a higher low here, but they haven't formed one yet. And we're going to watch 825 support tomorrow morning. If the bulls can bounce off 825 support, we'll look for a bounce and a lower high compared to 873. So a nice tightening range, just looking for the higher low compared to 825, which has not been established yet. If we lose that equilibrium on the hourly bearish, we look for a pullback and a higher low compared to 771. If we break it bullish, we're looking back up at the all-time high of 887. TRST, extremely tight still. We have not gotten the clear break. So we look at the tight hourly time frame, and I'm watching it just get tighter and tighter. Double top, higher low, lower high, double bottom, lower high. Most important range for me is 1186 to 1214. Break 1186 and we're looking at 1173. Break 1214 and we're looking at 1229, and then back up to 1240. So this is going to dictate whether we see sideways daily consolidation and then a move back up to the recent high, or whether we see sideways consolidation and then a bear break, indicating we need a clear higher low still to be established with a lot of space since our last daily higher low was established. So the lack of support under 1173 would be a bit concerning. You can see the volume is dropping off as the range tightens, and we will see a volume spike when the range breaks, I assume tomorrow, but with it being a Friday, have to be... Well, we'll watch the volume, and it should be a pretty solid volume day tomorrow, especially if we break that range within the first 20 minutes of trading. That's when we should see some volume follow through. HEXO following through with its daily higher low now clearly established at 723. That's now the most important support level on the daily time frame. The hourly trend change, not really clear in terms of a higher low, higher high pattern, but we saw the bounce attempt. We traded a little sideways at the end of the day yesterday. Strong start for the bulls, getting continuation, and we're just keeping these little hourly higher lows going. 744 is the first support. 752 is resistance, followed by 765. So nice follow through. We will need to consolidate more clearly, and if we look at it on the 4-hour time frame, we can see consolidation. This is the 4-hour bounce, and what the bulls want to see is a 4-hour higher low and higher high to show a nice clear shift in momentum from profit taking back to bulls buying the dip and getting follow through. So the hourly time frame certainly worth watching here, but I do like the clarity of the 4-hour chart to know that we could still pull back a decent amount down to 730 or so and still form that 4-hour higher low. And of course, best case scenario for the bulls would get as much follow through as possible on this move by breaking 752. The reason being it creates more space. We then have more space where we can consolidate and form that higher low without heading right back down towards support. VFF, beautiful bull flag trying for follow through. The most important daily support is now 1261 as we have clearly shifted that momentum bullish. The hourly time frame here with a clear equilibrium and then a trend change. So we had the high, low, lower high, higher low just held support. And then first thing this morning, we didn't break resistance, but we did break it later in the day. And the trend is now looking right back up to the all-time high. Hourly higher low is 1359 at the end of the day. Bulls want to break 1407 first thing tomorrow, and then 1483 all-time high is on watch. Want to see that volume on the daily chart start to pick up, which it did today, but the Bulls want to see that follow through. And if we're going to break that all-time high on this move and just go straight to continuation, we're going to need to see more than, we'll say, just looking at some comparable volume, we want to see more than 2 million shares traded if we're going to get that kind of big bull follow through. So ideal daily chart at this point is just up to the Bulls to drive it home. They've got the setup, and we'll see if they can get that follow through. Fire. So Fire had a clear bull break, increasing bull volume the past couple days, but a nice clear shift in momentum. So we had the low of the pullback, 177. High of the bounce was 196. We topped out, we pulled back for another daily higher low at 185, and then there's your trend change confirmation. So top of the bounce, higher low, higher high, and a solid volume close, strong close, and now we're looking up at this resistance zone of 221. So 220 and 221 is the next resistance level, and if we look on the weekly time frame, because of the space here, I'm going to say that the most likely scenario is that we form a weekly lower high compared to 236. So keep that in mind, that the odds are a weekly lower high compared to that level and continued tightening range. So even though the bulls look good, that's another scenario where, you know, if I'm not looking for a CGC entry like I talked about because we're close to an area where we're likely to form a daily lower high. So if we start approaching for Fire here up in the 215, 220 range, that's the same kind of thing. It's an area that's extended and that's close enough to a resistance level that we're likely going to pull back from and need to consolidate, that I wouldn't want to be making an entry up at that level, which is why good entries are so important, because it's a completely different scenario if you enter on the 196 bull break as opposed to seeing this action and saying, oh, that's a bull move, I want to get in. Well, at that point, you've already missed, you know, well over 5% of that move. So don't want to be chasing. And if you miss, that's the kind of scenario where if I'm looking at this setup and I say, all right, I want to buy the 196 bull break here, and then I'm, you know, busy for the day and I don't see it, I look at that and say, darn, I missed it. That's the follow through I wanted. I'm going to the next trade. I'm not chasing this one. I'll keep an eye on it. Maybe it'll get a better setup that I like, but the trade that I was looking for, I missed it. So too bad. Tgod. So Tgod daily inside bar after profit taking day yesterday, and that gives us a tightening range as well. So we had a bull break first thing and not a whole lot of follow through after it. So we can see the high, low, lower high, higher low at the low of the day, bull break, but not a lot of follow through, but it does still keep the bulls in the driver's seat at this point. So 389 is our new key support level. Anything on the hourly above 389 will keep the hourly higher lows intact, and 403 and 409 are our resistance levels as the bulls try and keep marching their way back up to the top of this move at 432. So a disappointing follow through from the initial strong start, looking at the 15-minute time frame. And where are we here? Back here. But nice 15-minute equilibrium to be watching. So the bulls can still follow through. If we break 395, we're going to lose momentum and stay in a tightening range. But if the bulls show up first thing and break $4 tomorrow, that's the ideal start to the morning. Medmen. So a bearish reaction to financials, unfortunately. Inside bar broke bearish. We couldn't break the high of yesterday by 1 penny. We dropped down and broke support of 421 with clear bearish follow through. And now we're closing near the low of the day. So we're looking at support of 394. Next level is 390 and then 380. And the hourly RSI at this point, checking how extended we are. Not even that oversold. When we bounce on the hourly, we're just going to look for a lower high. So sucking that momentum away, a weekly lower high. We anticipated a weekly lower high compared to 506 was the most likely scenario. and now we're looking back down at 360 support to see if the bulls can hold that level, because if not, we're looking back down towards the all-time low. And Medmen has been giving us red flags for quite some time at this point, and we were looking at Medmen as one of our top 6 US plays to do due diligence on. And at this point, the chart alone, forget the fundamentals. I don't even need to look at the fundamentals when the chart is this clearly more bearish than everybody else in the sector. That tells me to move on and look at other names, essentially. So watching for 360 key support. We'll see if the bulls are able to maintain. CURA, upper wicks of profit taking, lack of follow through is a red flag here. So we might have to pull back again on this daily time frame and establish more support. So 1007 and 1008 is short-term support. If that breaks, we're looking back down at 950. So resistance, we can see we've topped out twice in the last 2 days, 1084, 1074, 1078. So a resistance zone is up there. And the first support is going to be 1034. If 1034 breaks, you can see 1002 and 1008 are a couple support levels. So we have a support test coming early first thing, it looks like, after the profit taking and inability to see the kind of bull break and follow through that the bulls would have hoped for. CWeb. CWeb's getting the follow through. So the shares expiration came and went. We have a bull move here on the daily time frame. Declining volume is absolutely notable. And again, we are looking for a lower high compared to 2030 as the most likely scenario, but the bulls are keeping the hourly uptrend in their favor on this bounce. You can see just higher lows and higher highs. The most recent higher low is down at 1901. So that's the most important short-term level for the bulls to hold. 1980 and then 2030 are the next two resistances. And looking at the weekly time frame, trying to establish that the weekly higher low has been established, and we need to get that followed through with a daily higher low and higher high, ideally. Although I guess you could call that here. This little pullback was a higher low and then continuation. Not picture perfect, but it was a bounce. We rejected, we held support, and then saw continuation. So let's see if the bulls are going to be able to make their way up to these low 20 resistances. I would anticipate they're probably not going to be able to, but they did close at the high of the day, so we'll give them a shot into tomorrow. If this were increasing bull volume, the odds that we would see breaks of these resistances would be much higher than they are because it's decreasing bull volume. Nrth, daily inside bar as well, still holding on. Volume just completely disappeared as we tighten up, and it's all about 110 was the resistance. I believe in the video yesterday, we were looking for a lower high compared to 110, and it might have even been 2 days ago. But we've got 110, 96, 108, 102 support, and just sideways. So 102 needs to hold for the bulls. 108 is resistance, and an hourly equilibrium is going to dictate whether we're headed back to test the highs or whether we need daily consolidation to establish a higher low. So that's where we stand as we head into tomorrow. Again, I am slowing up my trading in this space until we get clear breaks from the major names. I do believe that those clear breaks are going to dictate momentum for the sector to a large degree. At this point, we're going to, for a while, in my opinion, see individual names able to do their own thing. But obviously, if we're looking at a whole and looking at what's most likely for the sector and taking any individual name and trying to apply the most likely odds, it's going to depend on what these major names do in these tightening daily ranges. So that's where all of our focus will be next week. And, well, I guess tomorrow the bulls do have another shot to try and make their way up to resistance for CGC and Cron. We'll see if the bulls are able to pull that off. But again, I think that's a less likely scenario unless there's some nicely timed news. And news has certainly been aplenty in this sector. And you can, a slew of news for a half dozen tickers every single day to be watching for. Hope you do good things out there. I'm out of content for the end of these videos. We can either go back to some repeat farm footage and Iceland footage and stuff like that. We just did Iceland. Or we can do a slideshow where I go through my road trip where I lived out of my car for 7 months around the US. That was maybe 8 years ago. But I did that once, but I think I only did that in cryptocurrency videos. So I'd be down to go through that again and just have story time at the end of the videos. But let me know what you want to see, and I'll try and do new, fun, exciting things to keep that end of video interest going. See you tomorrow.